Greetings everyone, and welcome to Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to head back to Golarion, the world of the Pathfinder role-playing game system? I know I am. We're going to be diving into another ancestry today. So come on, take my hand as we plane ship through the multiverse to Golarion. I, your host here, Cantus Narravan, your guide in this travel, only ask that you do a little bit of like, subscribing, the bell to support the channel here as we plane shift through time and space to Golarion once more. Yes, we'll be learning about the Minotaur today. A ancestry which has been always more of a monster, but only more recently introduced as something you can play, interestingly enough. So we're going to be diving in and learning all about it. What are some good sources? Well, we can start with some sources from, of course, 1st edition, which we have the campaign settings, Inner Sea World Guide. Similarly speaking, these give an idea about where Minotaurs are in the world. Bestiary is also another one from the more monstrous side. But I would really recommend more Monster Core and How the Wild to see how they are played in 2nd edition and how they are evolved, and much more than the lone monsters we know about, which do exist, but are unique amongst the Minotaurs. They are outliers amongst the culture. Let's learn. Where do we start? Well, Minotaur are oftentimes of large size, sometimes of medium size. They are bovine-headed humanoids. Looked at being brutish in nature, they are talented artisans with an affinity for puzzles, mazes, labyrinths. They are said to originate from a divine curse. Master craftsmen, master architects, and masters of stone. They're in homes in places like labyrinths a lot of times. That idea of puzzles, both natural, artificial, and psychological. They stalk their complex passageway. They're masters of their architecture. They're inquisitive and steadfast. They spend their lives pursuing the pursuits that call to them, which can lead them far from the enclaves they were raised. They originate from the Ibliados archipelago and have spread across Golarion, forming close-knit communities. Near mountains, beneath the surface of the earth, they can be that mistake, but there are many scholars and warriors, rather than just brutes. And those that look past their appearance and their affinity for building and navigation, as well as problem solving, can be something major to learn about and deal with. So as I said, they originated on Ibliados and spread across Golarion. And this version of a Minotaur does exist, we'll talk about it, but this is the mythological one more than anything. It doesn't say that there isn't a stalking the Labyrinth Minotaur, just they are rarer and more unique and more mythological. Basically, origin myths come in various ways. The most common story that the Minotaurs told, among Minotaurs, is told of a famous Ibliadoan stonemason named Cavadrinos, who received a murky vision to create a temple for an unnamed hero god, involving twisted columns, charging bulls, and an unknown figure making a defiant stand. For 17 years, he labored to create a 3-story building temple. Cavadrinos arrived only to be berated by the hero god for misinterpreting the bull of his visions as allies rather than enemies. The hero god then cursed the mason and transformed him into the first Minotaur. And Cavadrinos was filled with anger, fled into the caverns underneath the temple, and continued to craft stone statues. There's other legends, of course. The one about Earthfall and the Master gifting the Alazi people of Tulo, a 2-headed calf that they were horrified, killed with. And the woman of Tulo gave birth to Minotaurs. They raised these as their own children, but when they gave birth to normal offspring, they shunned these into mazes, forgot about them. They eventually escaped these mazes and massacred the people of Tulo. Regardless, though, of the actual origin, again, more Minotaurs go for the Iblidosian story than the Atlantic Tulo story. Again, a divine curse could just be that of creating more than one Minotaur. During the first siege of Absalon is a major point for them. In 23 AR, the Casimir Minotaur warlord Vordani Voon attempted to besiege Absalon with an army of centaurs, harpies, and minotaurs he brought out of Ibliados by teleporting to the gate known as the Brazen Arch. He intended to use the Starstone to have divinity, but was defeated by the volunteer guard of Absalon, precursors of the First Guard, led by Aradin himself. Their defeat and retreat and destruction of Brazen Arch forced all of his forces to settle on Korthos, where they've continued to basically deal with the other island inhabitants since then. That's a major part of their... When we look at a Minotaur, they, of course, are tall, bulky humanoids with bovine features. Horns, hooves, elongated faces. Their fur is frequently monotone in deep browns or blacks, with white or gray not being uncommon, especially as they age. There are through their larger size, Minotaurs might cause one to think that they are clumsy. It's quite opposite. Their hooves rest on delicate balance points, making their footfalls quiet and precise. However, when there is a need to be heard, the steps can fall like thunder. Their horns are a source of pride and are often accented with pieces of fashion. Those longer horns add rings and chains around them, and cast in whatever rare metals are affordable, or dye or engrave patterns in them. Those with not much horn to speak of instead shave their fur around the base of the horns, adding a stylish circular tattoos in the surrounding skin, or fitting metal caps and tips, drawing attention to an overlooked feature that can possibly exist upon them. There are some variations. Shaggy Minotaurs that have a little bit more fur, modified coats to resist freezing environments, great horned Minotaurs that have larger horns, smaller ones, smaller framed Minotaurs, little horns, those with pale fur and supernatural sense, the ghost bulls. So there's kind of like other variations that exist within them. And they are born of two Minotaur parents, as expected, or maybe some kind of great divine curse. I mean, we had the first one, according to legend, coming about because of that. So, let's talk about Minotaur society a little bit here. Most spend their lives working on their artisan skills. That's a big part of them. They often live in insular, underground, communal enclaves. These groups, subterranean, take great pride in their architectural prowess, hewing buildings out of stone and natural caves alike. These places oftentimes have twice as many buildings as it needs, with the extra structure serving as basically functional art. A young Minotaur may practice their hunting or stalking skills in these buildings, and each generation adds a small extension, a fresco of the wall, extensions like twisting hallways, unexpected overhangs, shared gardens, other conveniences, create numerous social spaces, quiet areas for calm reflection. So long as the traveler is able to keep from becoming lost in this strange architectural flow that they build about by this. Migrating from Ilios to other regions, to the various other caves and mountain areas, they get along well, usually with like-minded ancestors, dwarves, hobgoblins, orcs. Conflict between them and other tribes can turn violent, but usually the losing side flees the area, or basically has the survivors absorbed in the winning group. And that's when the Minotaurs come in. A lot of traditions grow up in kind of isolation, and they have unbiased outlooks with regards to events and facilitates any adaptation required. So, though they are in isolation, they aren't against adaptation, which is very important. There are myths about Minotaurs leading them to be fierce carnivores or even cannibals in the darkest of legends. But they are hunter-gatherers, really. They primarily feed on lichen and other flora. Communities rarely eat meat, and it's expected during these monthly rituals where stalkers venture out and return with dangerous game for a feast in the hunter's honor. So it's special circumstances, rituals, that basically indulge in this eating of meat. And the eating is feasting on this kill shows gratitude and reverence for the hunter's skill. Minotaurs are blunt, literal. They rarely employ clever wordplay like sarcasm or irony. Some of their expressions and gestures, such as flaring nostrils or rolling eyes, can intimidate other cultures unfamiliar with them, but these expressions are used to inject emotion or spiritual elements in their stories. They further emphasize a single emotion with piercings and tattoos, but wearing too many for fierceness' sake makes them look a little silly to other Minotaurs. Alright. Let's talk about the social misconceptions, because some lone Minotaurs can leave its community because of compulsion, exile, or personal reasons. They can live in mazes, warrens, or old ruins. This solitude can drive them sometimes to become monstrous hunters that torment and terrify prey, while stalking and chasing others to kill them. Some that experience this violent or are or intolerant interactions with other humanoids may cause them to retire to a lair which they fiercely guard. Basically, violence against them, intolerance against them can drive them to this. And societies judge Minotaurs based on these loners very oftentimes, these fierce carnivores, and the fierce carnivore abilities of their monthly hunts, which these experiences combine fuel a lot of the myths and dark portrayals of the carnivores, cannibals that they are, even though they really aren't. They speak Common and Jotun, some learn Cyclops, Dwarven, Fae, Petrin, and Skavoth. Some Minotaurs learn to understand lowing as a form of language allows them to communicate with cattle, bison, antelopes, or other grazing herd animals. And the expression angry bull stamps once and roars twice, both warn against overly aggressive display and suggests that actions engendered fear more than words. It's also quoted saying in their culture. Let's talk about that. Beliefs. Again, the isolationists take them an even-handed approach. And adaptations is important, but they can also have these negative reactions, which shape them in a lot of ways. They usually don't associate with deities when they're raised in an enclave. The story of Travanos, divine creatures are believed to be petty and uncaring due to the extreme difference in power between a deity and a mortal. Minotaurs often adopt a logical or spiritual philosophy that views the mysteries of their existence as puzzles that could be solved through research and consideration. Many Minotaurs live by edicts to construct lasting architecture works of beauty, seeking increasingly complex postures or sharpening their skills. Common anathema among Minotaurs, including leaving their fates to divine power instead of moral influence, or choosing not to investigate mysteries. When they do follow a deity, they often choose one focused on self-improvement and control, like Iori or Nethys. So, occasionally deities, but it's a lot of more spirituality in the culture. Now here we have powerful Minotaur, powerful Horse Minotaur. Because Minotaurs are across Golarion. There are still those that live in Iglidos. They have a similar name to the Archipelago's humans. During childhood, Iglidian Minotaurs use the surname Cavanos, the first Minotaur. By adulthood, the individual's childhood friends and allies collectively give them their first name. Their surname constantly changes. It's based upon their most memorable achievements. There's a subculture in Oprak, assisting in engineering works throughout the Mindsmith Mountains. There are some that have migrated as far east as Minotaur and Tianzi, which is home to a different bovine ancestry, Saragi. A large conclave of Minotaurs live in the island Korthos, where there's more than 40 different groups of them in the region that range in size from modest raiding groups to large and sophisticated communities. Many worship Baphomet, although they commonly engage in peaceful dealings with the island's inhabitants. The settlement of Hazarak is located in the island of Korthos, Riven Hills. Its habits trace its origins to the first siege. The surviving Minotaurs fled there and formed the city. Now, in the God's Reign, in 4724, just this year, Minotaur clans from the island reported individual members of each clan exposed to this, transforming into large, more bestial war spawn. One of them is claimed to be a reincarnation of legendary Vordani Voon, who wants to reunite the island's Minotaur clans and try to basically do the first siege again. Reattempt it. So, war spawn Minotaurs are a new thing, and this is Ingar Maga, powerful one. That is it for the Minotaurs. I hope you enjoyed diving into and learning all about them. They're an interesting ancestry, as generally speaking, they have a lot of basically misinformation about them. And this misinformation makes them seem monstrous when they really aren't. Granted, their own little enclaves and communities keep to themselves a lot of times, but individuals that travel, try to find new places, learn new things, they might get that prejudice and that misinformation about them, which drives some of them to become the monsters they thought about. But there are those that do adventure, that do travel, that do discover things, because they want to learn, to see, to find out information, to discover, and that ability to learn more, to have their skills to the best, drive some of them away from their communities. So, maybe with the changes in Golarion and everything that's going on, we might see more Minotaurs travel out from their homes, and more of them basically get rid of some of these misgivings about them, these old rumors about them, which aren't necessarily great. Who knows? Regardless, the Minotaurs, as they descended from Ileidos, have found their way into the world. I hope you enjoyed learning. But that'll be it for today. Remember to check out my stuff when I go live on Twitch or put stuff up on YouTube. My schedule for that is over on my Discord, my Twitter/X, my Blue Sky, and of course over on my YouTube channel. That has when I'm going live, when I upload things to YouTube, whatever I'm doing live, from tabletop to other stuff too. And remember just to do the various things if you're over on the YouTube side of things, like, subscribe, ring the bell. Have any of you played a Minotaur, or would be interested in playing one now that I've talked about it? I'm curious as to what you think, especially because it has been defined a lot better now than how the Wild book came out in 2nd edition here, and has a lot better information. I would recommend checking it out and looking at least on the archives of Memphis to see if you're interested. Make sure to check out Discussing Tabletop on Saturdays at 6. Any of my live plays of stuff. I am planning on doing some Pathfinder 2nd edition in the future as I'm finishing up my 1st edition game with Crimson Queen, doing some more stuff. We're kind of in that in-between period at the time of the recording of this, so yeah, make sure to check out all my stuff. You can always check out my archive stuff. You can see how I've grown as a GM over the years. So I feel like I have, after all the said and done, all these adventures. You learn stuff every time you run an adventure, and you get better. I think that's it for today. I think I said all my shoutouts. Anyway, I'm gonna get going. Maybe hang on Twitch chat a little bit. Maybe do some more recordings. But until the next time we hang out or do any of these videos or such, I bid you all out there a deep and well farewell.